There is increasing tension between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Anakin still feels responsible for the death of a Jedi Council member, a guilt he does not think Obi-Wan can help him overcome. Obi-Wan feels he is a less-than-perfect master, trying to teach a less-than-perfect apprentice. It is with these feelings that Obi-Wan and Anakin head to the last free planets of the Uzil system to make a daring rescue attempt. When the rescue goes awry, and Anakin is taken prisoner, the Master and Padawan must overcome their conflict, or a planet will die. Welcome, everybody, and by everybody I mean younglings. That's who I mean. Younglings are welcome here in the Padawan Library. My name's Tim May. Here is Levi Paratic.
Hello.
It's the podcast about Star Wars Junior novels. We got through that quick this time.
We did. No time. It was like seamless.
I know. Normally it takes us like 3 or 4 minutes to finally get to the... what's the show about? We forgot this.
Yeah, it's junior novels.
And now we're spending that much time talking about how normally we fuck it up. So, great job by me. But, this episode, we're talking about, what's the name of the book again? The Moment of Truth.
Moment of Truth, Jedi Quest number 7, The Moment of Truth.
So, before we get to that, we'll talk for a bit here. We're probably going to keep this episode pretty loose and short, I would guess.
Ooh, that reminds me. I do have a small segment.
Oh.
I have a new edition of Batu News. I didn't write this, but it's a little bit of news that I thought I would share. So,
all right, what's the source then?
Okay. Well, the source is comicbook.com, and I'm sure they got it from somebody else. It showed up in my Facebook. They titled this article completely wrong. They were trying to make it seem very predatory against Galaxy's Edge. So let me open this
Predatory against Galaxy's Edge? Weird phrase.
There's a lot of press out there that wants to hurt Galaxy's Edge. So
yeah, and there are other words. Predatory has a specific connotation. But yeah.
All right. Bright suns and rising moons. I'm Levi Paratic, and this is Batu News. So, Tim, do you remember way back early in the show, I went to Disney World before Galaxy's Edge opened?
Yes, of course I remember.
And I posted a video.
One of our most embarrassing moments is the video you made.
And I posted in its entirety a stage show called Star Wars: A Galaxy Far, Far Away.
Yes.
On February 22nd, Tim, that show closes for good. That's a show that's normally performed in the park like 4 to 5 times a day, even more than that.
Without that show, it's like Disney World without Pirates of the Caribbean. What are they doing?
Right, exactly.
What are they doing?
Exactly, I agree.
Get out of here with that show.
Yeah, where else in a Disney park are you going to see Darth Maul or Boba Fett? Not in Galaxy's Edge, because it's set in the wrong timeline.
Yeah, you will eventually, let's be real about that.
Yeah.
Just wait a couple years. They'll get to it.
So if you're gonna miss this show, or you have missed this show, check it out on our YouTube page. Padawan Library Adventures Outside the Temple. I think
that's true. Is it the only video on YouTube of it?
I don't know.
You should look into it. See. Not now.
Okay.
Don't distract yourself from the show. At some point, we'll report back. If it is the only video, then hey, maybe we can get our YouTube views up.
maybe we need to retitle the video.
You'll also need to cut a version that is just that, and not a travel log or anyway. So,
very proud of that video. I had a good time on that trip.
If we seem no shots at your personal vlogs, but I'm sorry. But yeah, so we seem probably very laid back and maybe a little unenthusiastic this week, but I'm feeling pretty good. I didn't even hate it, I'm just happy the Oscars are over, but I'm also happy with the results largely. Mm-hmm. So I feel good about movies. Yeah,
I had a feeling you would enjoy the Oscars.
Listen.
No shots. That sounded bad, but Parasite won big. So.
Yeah, one of my 3 favorite movies of the year actually won, which is I can't remember the last time that happened. So I don't know if that's happened in my in my lifetime. I love Lord of the Rings, so maybe that, or certainly Silence of the Lambs, the first year of my life, is one of my favorite movies of all time. So there's those. Those probably rank in the top 3 of those years for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but this movie's great, and I'm just happy. And I mean, the fact that my 3 favorite movies of the year were all nominated for Best Picture is also insane. That's right. That's the most unprecedented thing I can imagine. So I'm upset Little Women didn't get more, but costume design I appreciated because the costume design of that movie I felt like was being underrated in the talk about it because people were like, oh, it's just like a period that I've seen before. These people don't have the eye to understand what the costume design in that movie is, which is like it's not like it doesn't just use these stock costumes. It's very, very thought out. So I appreciated the one. So.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I actually saw an interview on TCM while I was watching through all the TCM stuff with Greta Gerwig, and she talks about how they were looking at they wanted the family to feel like they were kind of I don't want to say hippies, that's not the word she used, but how they wanted the costumes to feel a little bit more just.
She said she didn't want to see any hoop skirt. I've seen all the interviews, Levi. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. You can't no matter how much you would try, you can't best me in Little Women.
I know.
Love.
I know.
But no shots, obviously. I'm glad you like the movie.
Movie's fantastic.
It's the best. So good. But Parasite, masterpiece. I'm glad Bong Joon-ho has 15 Oscars or something. That's pretty crazy. If you had asked me in high school when I saw The Host when it came out, if this guy, is he going to win any Oscars in his entire career? I'd be like, no. And so I'm pretty happy about it. The Host is a great movie, too. There's a million. He's made nothing but great movies. So you need to see Parasite, by the way.
Yeah, I do need to see Parasite. Before they make the mini-series rumored to star Mark Ruffalo.
Well, we'll see if that actually happens. I think Bong Joon-ho got a nice big development check for that. And we'll see if it actually happens. Certainly, I'd be fine if it's just Bong Joon-ho, but Adam McKay, that's scary to me. I love Adam McKay as a comedy director, but I'm not the biggest fan of his recent movies, despite largely agreeing with their politics. But feels like junior varsity Oliver Stone to me. But we'll see. And so, and they're also they feel diametrically opposed stylistically as filmmakers. So that's weird. But it's whatever. It's whatever, Levi.
It's whatever. We're laid back. We're loosey-goosey.
The Oscars were fun. Movies this year. I'm looking forward to new movies this year. I can't believe it. It's crazy. Now we're moving on to the new year. Finally. Mm-hmm. And you know what's great about this? Normally this thing happens a month from now. In early March. And we have to keep talking about the same 5 or 10 movies for 15 years. Nobody wants to do this. I'm so happy they moved it back this year, but they're moving it back to the old way next year. We're why? I don't... Anyway.
Show needs a host.
Nobody got sick of any of these movies, basically. Like, that's good. Keep it in February. That's the latest I possibly ever want to talk about the previous year at all. So, like, to me, if it should honestly be the same day that, like, a presidential inauguration is in years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, or it should be the same week or whatever. Because, like, nobody wants to talk about these movies for 3 months. Like, this was a great, get it out of the way early. Love it. Thank you for doing that, Academy, and curse you for changing it back for next year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to movies this year, though. The new Wes Anderson trailer is good.
Oh, I didn't know that was out.
Oh, it's out. The French Dispatch looks really interesting.
Is that today? Is that today?
Yeah, that just came out today. Today's Wednesday
damn.
for you sleuths trying to figure out when we record. We know we have tons of super sleuths out there. But yeah, anyway, it's it looks cool. The 2 movies ago, Grand Budapest Hotel, that's one of my favorite Wes Anderson's ever. His last movie is one of my probably least favorite, but I still liked it. And I feel like it's one that could grow on me with repeat viewings, but I haven't really revisited it. There's certainly sequences where I'm like, ooh, this is great. And it felt slight to me in a way that his movies typically don't. But this one looks great. The cast is, of course, absolutely wild. I can't believe it. Benicio seems to be like one of the main guys in it. So excited for Benicio. You know how much I feel about Benicio.
I would have loved a Benicio cameo on Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, yeah, let's bring it back to Star Wars. How dare the disrespect for DJ is...
It's ridiculous.
It's got to be through.
He should have come... I wanted that character to be, like, redeemed in some way, you know? The character ends on such a bad note. And...
Yeah. Well, we'll get some, like, comic book from Marvel in, like, 2 years.
His comic book was already written by the scrubs who did Join the Resistance, so...
Well, they'll do another one. Only they can write it. The Knives Out sequel, too, is, like...
that is coming out.
That's probably going to go into production, like, in April, I read.
I'm sure it'll be out real quick, too, probably.
After Daniel Craig's Bond promotion is done, so... Yeah, so they'll probably be casting that up over the next couple months. Very exciting. New Paul Thomas Anderson's going to start shooting soon. There's a lot of good stuff to look forward to in the world of movies. A thing that this podcast is not about, but it's the secondary topic of this show. I'll
bring it back to Star Wars because I was at Target yesterday and I was just going through the toy aisle, same old crap, and I decided to stop in the Lego aisle that I'd buy nothing in, and I realized that Kerry Russell's character from Rise of Skywalker, Zori Biss, who should have been Bliss. Oh, anyway, she should have been.
Like I said, the one takeaway that I maintain that I stick by is that I need to see Kerry Russell and Oscar Isaac have sex. That's, I think, what I said on the review. And,
I think you said that.
I stand by it. So make it happen, someone in Hollywood.
Well, I noticed something that I hadn't noticed before. Looking at her Lego set, her ship is a Y-wing, Tim, and it made me think. Could that mean that her character was maybe a Y-wing pilot for the Rebel Alliance at some point? And,
she would have been very young.
Her and Poe break off, and then they do their little spice running thing. And then
the Rebel Alliance broke up 30 years prior to
the Resistance.
So she'd be, 8 years old? I think that she probably... I don't know. I don't think the Resistance would exist that far back.
I don't know. Just a thought. Because it's why does she have a Y-wing?
Because, she bought it on... it's a dead... it's a ship that's not used anymore, and they bought it... whatever. Who cares? Why are we talking about this? This just bums me out.
These are the same people who made the decision to have Wedge... not in an X-Wing, so Wedge is just... I realized Wedge is the gunner in the Falcon. I didn't realize that the first time, but...
Listen. We got into a big fight about Wedge before the movie came out, and I stand by everything I said. I was very happy to see him. I have no problems with what he does in the movie, even though it's useless. But here's the other thing about Wedge. In the context of the movies, he's a very minor character. But you will put some respect on the name of Wedge Antilles, Hero of the Rebellion, before this podcast is done.
Okay.
I don't mean this episode. I mean, before we wrap this up, you're going to put some respect on that name. And so we got to figure out some way to honor Wedge Antilles. There's not really any young readers books that feature him prominently, besides, I guess, the one Galaxy of Fear book we read.
Right.
But
I wonder what those Rebel... If he shows up in...
Rebel Force?
Rebel Force. I wonder if he shows up in those.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it. He could, because that's post... That's the most crammed area of Star Wars Expanded Universe there is. Because there's the original Marvel comic books. There's this thing. There was a Dark Horse run that was right before the sale that took place right after, and like at the time it was annoying because I was like, "What are you overwriting the original Marvel books?" Which, by the way, I love the original Marvel comics. It's one of my favorite Star Wars things ever. So never disrespect those. This is a rambly nonsense.
It is very extremely.
I'm just talking. I was like, oh, what have I been up to? Oh, the new Wes Anderson trailer. Oh, I like Wedge Antilles. So yes,
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Hey, that's
I mentioned
exciting.
Wes Anderson. Made me think of Paul Thomas Anderson.
No, it did not. Listen,
other way around.
Those are two very distinct figures. Although Paul Thomas Anderson is slightly above for me, but although I think Wes has made the one movie I like the most out of all of them. But anyway, if I had to go Anderson versus Anderson, I'd put Royal Tenenbaums as the number one movie of their whole oeuvres. Mm-hmm. But I would say overall, the filmography, I like... Well, I like all the movies because I'm a fucking auteurist loser who likes literally every movie by every director that I like. Let's be real. I decide to like a director, and then I'm like, you know what? I like all of these. Until they, like... it get embarrassing or something. Like, if they make something really actually bad, but, like, even, like, a mediocre movie by a great director, I'll be like, well, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of... Which is, you know what? That's true. It's not just me being, like, a fanboy loser. It's also true often, you know.
There's only one director who I think has gotten, like, that we both like, but who's gotten, like, extremely embarrassing.
We don't even need to say their name. I won't even give you any hint. But yes, I was thinking about renting his new movie.
Oh, Oops. You were?
I probably will at some point.
I heard it wasn't. I mean, friends of ours went and saw it in the one day only movie screening of it.
We're talking about Kevin Smith, like let's
yes. And we'd be talking about
who by the way, like
reboot.
His movies are very, very important to me as a young person. So I'm always going to have a lot of affection for him and his those movies. But when I saw Tusk in a theater, I was like, nope, never again. But maybe I'll see the Jay and Silent Bob movie. I don't know. Anyway, there's most direct. We have our disagreements. We have our big fights about some of these people. I'll see your ratings on Letterboxd sometimes, and I'll be like, what are you thinking? Both positive and negative. It happens all the time. But, hey, whatever. Yeah. Why are we talking?
I don't know. Let's get on. We should get into the book.
Yeah,
we've been rambling for almost 18 minutes.
I'm sorry, guys. Listen, hey, the book preview of our thoughts, not a ton going on in this book, so we had to pad out the episode.
Something kind of cool happens, but yeah.
Some big stuff happens, but the book itself, we'll talk. Anyway, had to pad this episode out a little bit, but anyway, when we come back, we will be talking about Jedi Quest number 7?
Yes, 7.
The moment of truth is coming just after this.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of gumdogs.
Welcome back to Padawan Library. We are two boys that took Government 101 with George Lucas in 2002, and I'm Levi Peretic, and this is Tim May.
Yes.
Say hello.
It is me.
Okay.
Hey, I'm taking comparative politics right now in college, in grad school. So, hey, and my teacher loves referencing Star Wars.
Oh,
so,
you've talked about this teacher. Now, has the
has
teacher ever stood before the class? Has he ever stood in front of the class and go, "I love democracy"? Has he ever said? I didn't say that anything like Sheev, but that line is powerful.
He hasn't. He kind of has, I guess. He said, "Well, I have to admit to my biases that I think democracy is the best system of government. It's the best ethos on which to build a government." So there's that. He did kind of pull a Sheev, I guess. Maybe he is Sheev. I don't know.
It could be.
Yeah,
it very well could be.
Anyway, so this book. The Moment of Truth. We left off last week where Anakin blames himself for Yaddle's death, and he feels like Obi-Wan, no matter what he says, is not going to be able to help him through this.
And there's already the rift between them two because of him not reporting Ferris missing while they were in the School of Fear.
That's true. School of Fear, if you remember from 15 years ago when we reviewed that book. I almost remember, so yeah. I'm sorry. I sound very dismissive. No shots at Jude.
No.
Jude.
Now, one thing, I read this blurb, the blurb that you read at the beginning of this episode, and I felt like this book, the blurb for this book sets the bar really high because it kind of promises something. And it's in the last line, when rescue goes awry and Anakin is taken prisoner, the Master and Padawan must overcome their conflict or a planet will die. I read that line and been like, what could possibly happen? But I feel like this promise here, there's a promise being made in this book that the conflict will be resolved. And I don't think it is.
Yeah, well, listen, you can't take the backs. As someone who is tasked with reading the back covers every week, you cannot take them seriously. They're not actively misleading, but they don't. They're often just kind of very loose, and this is clearly the beginning of an arc. Now, whether it should have been, let's just get into it, because this book features the return of an old villain.
Which you kind of suspect early on because the villain is referenced for what seemingly no reason.
Now, listen, I had a spoiler because I accidentally read the first line of the back cover of the next book when I bought it several months ago. So I was like, oh no, now I know this villain has returned. And this villain is Jenna Zan Arbor. Whatever, people know there's spoilers on this show. So, let's talk actually before we get started, because honestly, this book does not. I don't think this book gets going until really 2/3 of the way into the book.
You're right.
This is, I think, what I don't want to call. It's not like it's not like those filler books in the middle of Jedi Apprentice that are just not good. But it's a weird one. It's off balance, I think, just structurally. You have this massive section in the middle that's all about beasties, the Gundark stuff, which is, of course, filling in backstory that we hear about in episode 2. But I just don't. I don't know. I guess I'm saying my overall thoughts up front, which is weird.
Well, I mean, the first half of the book, we go to one planet, we get introduced to a bunch of characters, and then within a couple chapters, we're leaving that planet with all those characters. All those characters get imprisoned, and we never hear from those characters again. There is no resolution for those characters.
I mean, not really. Kind of at the end, but this is a problem I found. I think we'll get into some bigger picture thoughts on Jedi Quest, obviously, when we, are done with it I guess probably a month or so. But the one big step down I've found with these books, and I think these books have largely maintained a fairly consistent quality with Jedi Apprentice, but the one big step down, I think, has been in the supporting characters in the individual books. I think are much less sketched out, usually, and not all the time. I'm blanking on specific examples, but I know it's been several months since we read some of the earlier books, so I don't want to... And remember, we were effusive about the last book. I love the series, but I do think a lot of the kind of ancillary characters introduced in each planetary adventure are way less interesting and distinctive than the ones that were introduced in most of the Jedi Apprentice books.
Yeah. And we're getting a lot of overlap from those books, too. We're getting to get a lot of characters that are just... because there's a moment in this book where a whole bunch of, it's almost like fan service,
I did kind of like this moment, yes.
I did, too. I liked it a lot, but...
Yeah, I think the last, I don't know the exact page numbers because I read this book digitally, but...
it's 132.
Okay, so the last, probably 30 to 40 pages of this book, I really liked. I kind of wish that had been expanded a little further. I wish, the fact that it takes a third of the book for Anakin to get captured, which he gets captured in the middle of this book. We'll get into the details in a second. He should get captured in, chapter 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. There's all this stuff at the beginning that's introducing these characters that maybe they'll come back in the next book. I shouldn't assume, but I just
and there's also the scene too where it's our ship's broken and we can't fix it, and then Anakin's oh well I'll fix it, and they're oh I bet you can't, and then 5 pages later, Anakin's well, I fixed it, and it's there's no doubt that he would ever fix it,
It's not, I don't, if I sound really critical off the top, I had a fine time reading this. I wasn't, angry I was reading it at any point. I just thought, it was uncharacteristically kind of wobbly, I would say. I think there's a lot of incident in it that is interesting, and I'm curious about going forward. But it's not... I don't think it's one of the stronger entries in either series.
Yeah, because there's a whole chapter of Obi-Wan just traveling. There's nothing happens in the chapter. He just travels from point A to point B. And there's nothing
revealed
happens
about his character. And I just think there's some interesting character stuff here, but it's all kind of just leading to something eventually. It's kind of it's hinting, it's wobbling around. It's reminding me for my true Spidey heads out there, the current Spider-Man run has been wobbling around this possible reveal of this villain character for a year and a half now. And it's time. I'm saying this to Nick Spencer, the writer of Amazing Spider-Man, who definitely listens to our show. It's time to reveal who Kindred is, Nick Spencer. Let's go. And I'm saying it to Jude Watson back in 2003. Yes, we understand the difference, the relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin, how it's strained. I would like to see some sort of... It starts to come together at the end here, but I think, and we're getting that, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. I trust Jude, and I trust Nick Spencer. No shots at Nick. But the, very stupid thing to bring up, sorry. But so yeah, we'll see. I don't...
Let's get into this.
Get into the specifics, yeah.
Alright, I'll talk for a bit. So I'll give you what the mission is. The planet of Typhidor had pleaded for the Senate's help. They were the last holdout in the Uziel system against the aggressive invasions of the largest planet in the system. Uziel? Okay, well I see it's got Uzi in it, so...
that's what I said in the intro. We'll see, but yeah.
Okay, doesn't matter. And they're being attacked by Vancor. And so one of the successful, basically, Typhador has been holding off the Vancore because they have a surveillance outpost on this remote moon. And this moon is known as like T-44, and they have like just basically like a satellite listening post there. And they're fearing that the Vancorans are going to invade Typhador, or whatever that is. And they haven't... Oh, that cover you're holding up is the grossest cover in all of the books.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I have such strong opinions on that cover. I want to declare that.
We'll talk about it in a
cover.
few months.
Yeah, we will.
Sorry about that.
Hint.
Hint.
He looks like Data on the cover. You know, Data from Star Trek. Look at that cover.
Excuse me, Data? You're talking about Data right now?
Yes. Yes, I am.
He does kind of look like Data. You know, that makes me like it more.
Okay.
All right. You know I love Data.
Yeah. So anyway, this
now
outpost,
the audience is completely confused.
Yes. So anyway, this outpost has gone dead. They don't have any communication with it. So Anakin and Obi are being sent there to go deal with it. And they get attacked along the way by the Vancors. They lose their ship. And then on page 11, we have the first mention of Genazan Arbor, and the whole reason she's brought up is because this is kind of Obi-Wan's aside here. Obi-Wan is thinking about how, like, Anakin's feeling about the death of Yaddle and how he, like, kind of understands death, being that Qui-Gon almost died in the clutches of Genazan Arbor, but, like, didn't die, you know, that whole thing.
So he gets... But, I mean, you know...
Yeah, that's how they. Yeah. That's how she uses. She uses the whole reason to bring Genazan Arbor up, which immediately put up a red flag for me as like, I wonder.
Yeah, because like, what about when Qui-Gon actually died? Like, wouldn't that be what he's thinking about? But whatever. You know, I get it. Jude's on a deadline, people. Like,
yeah, she is.
Like, we got to be fair here, but I will say. We should actually, for the listeners that might not quite remember Genazan Arbor, we should explain that she was this villain from the kind of a middle arc in Jedi Apprentice.
Yeah, it was 3 books. It included the Deadly Assassin, right?
Yeah.
It included the Evil Experiment.
She's like this old, like... She's like a brilliant scientist who had devised cures for these big viruses and stuff, and saved a bunch of different worlds, but then she kind of got greedy and turned bad, and she wound up capturing Qui-Gon and holding him to do Force experiments on him and stuff like that. And then she was caught and went to prison, so that's worth noting. Space prison, I should say.
Space prison, and I honestly did not remember that, and luckily they reviewed it. They brought us back in on that later.
Yeah, but I figure our listeners might also not remember. So.
Yep. So anyway, they get to this listening outpost. They had to climb a huge mountain, and they meet the only 2 important characters in this group of people are Shalini and her husband Mezdek. And the whole reason that this whole place the whole place went radio silent is because they had a saboteur in their midst. And from the story is that it was Medzek caught him, and in order to stop him, blasted their communication computer with a blaster.
But here's the real story. Medzek is the actual saboteur. Obi-Wan figures out almost immediately, and then they basically find out that Obi-Wan's right almost immediately. We don't need to go over every detail of this. It happens so quickly.
And there's no fallout between the husband and wife character either.
Like, there kind of is near the end. The wife, she kind of like says her voice was raw when she acknowledged basically that he was the traitor. But whatever, he's the traitor. He escapes, and to provide the information to the other people. These are warring worlds in the same system. Whatever.
So, they got a broken ship. Anakin fixes the ship. Medzek escapes, and then but the ship has like no power, no defenses. They have to crash land on Vancor, the enemy planet, and they are immediately captured and taken to this prison camp, and Obi-Wan conveniently hides out under a rock during this. So Obi-Wan knows they get taken, and he has to go rescue Anakin, which requires him a whole chapter of him traversing a giant mountain and planet, and
then another chapter of him hanging on, like, with a grappling hook onto
on a transport. Yep.
But anyway, so Anakin, where is he being held? In this peaceful garden-like atmosphere. And
what's it called?
Oh, I don't have the book in front of me. Because I read it digitally.
It's okay. I'll find it here. We've skipped so much. I have I don't even know what chapter we're even on at this point. I'm still in chapter 5.
All right, sorry if it feels like we're rushing, listeners. We're not. It's just I don't think anything in the first half of this book is worth discussing at length. So I just want to get to the meat of it.
Oh, I found it. All right, he is taken to the zone of self-containment.
Where he gets
drugged, but he's drugged with antidepressants.
It's this,
and all those. You go ahead.
Yeah. It's this world. It's this area. It's very peaceful. It's kind of a garden atmosphere, and none of the thoughts that trouble him normally are bothering him. So he's very sedate. It's not that he's been completely, everything's been nullified totally, but it's those negative thoughts still emerge, but he doesn't feel bad about them anymore. So it's like a kind of an antidepressant chamber or something.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's wonky. And something else that's wonky is Anakin also has a data disk. See, Medzek has a data disk, and he thinks it's the Vancor invasion plans, and he's going to deliver those to the Typhadors. Actually, they're the wrong.
The disc.
Yeah, and those are actually the wrong plans, so it's a trap for the Typhadors. And Anakin, he has the right disc. He has the right invasion plans.
I want to say this. This is not a rule that actually holds up if you look at all stories, but me and a friend of ours used to run a website where we reviewed movies, and one of our rules was that if there was some subplot involving a lost piece of microfilm, it was a boring movie.
It holds true in this book.
And I feel like discs containing information in Star Wars books is often a bad sign. Now listen, obviously, the original Star Wars opens with Princess Leia putting information into R2, but that's the genius part, because she puts it into a character, so the information becomes a character in the movie. That's what makes that exciting. If it was just if she just gave the disc to C-3PO, and C-3PO, and there was no R2-D2, and C-3PO is just waving the disc around, then the disc would be an annoying plot device. But because she puts the disc into R2-D2, the information becomes embodied in the character of R2-D2. One of the greatest, and as I've said many times, one of the greatest, most resourceful, cutest characters of all time. Eat your heart out. Eat your non-existent mechanical heart out, BB-8. R2-D2 for life. But
I agree. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just saying, oftentimes it's used as just here's something that will get us a bunch of plot in these books. You know what I mean? A bunch of plot, useless, just throwing around back and forth plot in the middle of these books. Often. That's often how they're used.
And that's pretty
sound
much
very angry.
The actual extraneous plot, the whole mission that they're going on is based around this disc. And actually, when Obi-Wan breaks into this place and rescues Anakin, which Anakin has a meeting with Genazan Arbor, he has no idea who she is. She asks him if he's force sensitive. He plays stupid.
That scene's pretty interesting, actually.
It is.
And he doesn't want to leave because he feels good, or at least good in his mind for the first time in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And not good, content, and so that's interesting. That sequence is pretty interesting, but then it's cutting. You know what I mean? It's going back and forth with this Obi-Wan stuff that's purely utilitarian, and it kind of breaks up the emotional angle of this. Once they come together, once Obi-Wan actually gets to the facility and meets back up with Anakin, then the book, I think, is mostly pretty interesting from that point forward.
Right, and on page 84 is whenever after the rescue happens, so we're already 80 pages into the book.
Yeah.
So anyway, Anakin and Anakin's still in a daze from his sedatives, and Obi-Wan, their ship self-destructs, and Obi-Wan falls into a Gondark nest.
Now, Gundark thing is interesting because I would not have realized this if you hadn't posted on our social media about this quote from episode 2 about this is as bad as I'm sorry, I'm a terrible fan. I don't have the dialogue from Clones memorized. Yeah, what is it? You had it.
I'll have to look up the line. Hang on, but this is the second time in a Star Wars Attack of the Clones is the second time a Gondark is mentioned. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, of course. Not the creature, but this specific incident is essentially mentioned in episode 2.
Yes, and if you went on our social media, you could find a quote of the line, which I now have to pull up myself.
Listen, I apologize.
I got it.
Okay.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of Gondarks. Master, you fell into that nightmare, Master. I rescued you, remember?
Master?
Master.
You know what? They summed it up more than we ever need to. That's what happens. Obi-Wan falls into a Gundark nest, and Anakin, for a while, is like, I should leave and continue the mission. That's the Jedi way, which is like a weird. I'm not sure that is the Jedi way, and then eventually he snaps out of it. And he finally snaps out of his whole daze from the chamber that Jedi Ann Arbor had set up, and goes back and rescues Obi-Wan. So they head out, and they go back to the landing platform or something, where they are greeted by the Deus Ex Jedi team.
Yes, this is the All-Star moment. This is when the All-Star team shows up.
Listen, the All-Star NBA All-Star Game's this weekend.
Oh, damn.
I'm not excited because the All-Star Game's never that good, but I'm excited for the dunk contest. Let's go. But anyway, so this is the Jude Watson Jedi All-Stars, the living Jedi All-Stars.
And here's who shows up. Suri Tachi, her Padawan, Ferris Olin. After that, the one true friend, True Veld, Anakin's one true friend.
True.
And his master shows up. I can't remember his master's name. And then the absolute...
This is the biggest one.
The absolute legend, Garen Mullen.
Obi-Wan's my Kanan.
Oh...
This character was created by the wizard of storytelling himself, Dave Wolverton. And all the way back in the Rising Force Jedi Apprentice #1. So it's very exciting. I actually am a big fan of him. The whole storyline that he's became more prominent in, which was I think in one of the special edition Jedi
with the piloting school. And I have something
Speaking
here.
Of which,
and
also,
something. Yeah, he's a star pilot.
Klee Rara, his old master, who ran that piloting school, is also there.
Yes, she is. And I said here, Garen Mullen is Jude's wedge. The way he's treated in this is very wedge-like.
He's very wedge-like. Listen,
Because Anakin's in awe of his piloting skills. Anakin gets to sit co-pilot with him in his Jedi Starfighter, and Anakin's like, "Ooh."
Listen, is he the hero of the Republic? I don't know about that.
No,
I don't know about that. He's not Wedge Antilles in terms of his accomplishments, but maybe his skill is the same. The same level. It's like how Wilt Chamberlain and Shaq have the same probably level of skill ultimately, but Shaq's accomplishments just ultimately eclipsed his. Shaq is the Wedge Antilles in this scenario. That's all I'm saying.
So yeah, they go and save the day. They save the planet from the invasion. And, okay, we're almost done with the book here. I'm chapter 16. They meet Mezdek again. They quickly debunk him, and he's thrown into jail. Genazan Arbor escapes. They free everybody at the prison camp. Yeah, alright.
So, this is basically what happens. Genazan Arbor, and... basically, Anakin, and also Anakin, by the way, did not tell Obi-Wan right away about what effect the Genazan Arbor's treatment had on him.
Yes, and when he finally did, he used the word, he was tormented, which is important.
Which we're going to get into. I actually want to read a bit here in a second, but also he did it in front of everybody, so... He had to reveal it to everyone, and clearly Obi-Wan hadn't heard it before. So Ferris Olin, who is Anakin's rival, who's a little shit. Like, listen, they do a good job of actually getting you to identify with Anakin, because Anakin is a pretty unsympathetic character throughout a lot of the series, which I appreciate Jude for going in on that and not like just making him a totally different character from what he is in the movies. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, like I really like I like that, but they do a good job of making him a little sympathetic by pitting him against Ferris Olin, who just sucks. I don't like Ferris. Right? I don't like Ferris, and from what I understand, he's the lead character of Last of the Jedi. I hope I grow to like him a little more, but we'll see. Anyway, so basically, Ferris. When they're all saying goodbye at the end of the book, because basically Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to go off looking for Genazan Arbor by themselves, and the rest of the Jedi teams all have to go off on their own missions. So he says goodbye to True, and like him and True, Anakin and True talk about like, man, Ferris, and like True mentions that Ferris was like, why didn't he tell his master or whatever, and like so there, and like Anakin's like, Ferris needs to mind his own business. He's such a bitch. And
yeah,
so,
I have the line marked. This is what True said. Yeah. All right, True says, nothing overcomes Anakin's loyalty to his master, Ferris. True said sharply, and it's none of your business anyway. You weren't there and you don't know what happened. You have no right to judge. Ferris seemed to struggle against True's words for a moment. Then he inclined his head. You're right, True, as always. I apologize, Anakin. I shouldn't have said it. That's right, Ferris. You stepped over the line, but maybe Anakin owed him one after their mission on Andra. So one True being the one true friend.
Such a true friend. So true. But anyway, True like Saeed Jarrah. That's right.
Mm-hmm. That is the level of truth that True brings.
From Lost is the truest of the true. This this is a reference to something, not the Lost reference, but we've always said, you and I and some of our friends have always said that Saeed is just so true.
He's truth.
He is truth. He's the embodiment of truth. Even though he lies plenty of times. Anyway, but that's what True Veld is in Jedi Quest. I do want to read basically the last couple pages of the book. The part where after everyone leaves, Obi-Wan and Anakin are left together, and Obi-Wan starts saying, "You said torment?"
Yeah, I got that. Yep, we can do that.
Why don't you read Obi-Wan, I'll be Anakin.
Okay. You said torment, Obi-Wan remarked, still looking at the sky.
Excuse me? Anakin pretended confusion, but he knew exactly what Obi-Wan was referring to.
You said the things that normally torment you don't bother you at all. Not the things that trouble you, but torment you. Obi-Wan turned to face him. It was a strong word. What torments you, Anakin?
He looked to the ground. Perhaps I spoke more strongly than I meant to.
That is not an answer.
Sometimes I don't want to be the chosen one, Anakin said. The words broke free. They felt like stones in his mouth.
That's not surprising, Obi-Wan said. Many gifts can be burdens.
The Force is so strong. I can feel it so much. I feel so much. I don't want to feel so much. Anakin hardly recognized his voice, choked and aching. Obi-Wan looked startled at his vehemence. Why am I chosen? Why is it me? Why can't I refuse it? Can't you let me refuse it? Can't you take it away?
Anakin!
Take it from me, please, Master! Anakin wanted to fall to his knees. A deep tide of feeling, of dread, had risen up within him and choked him. He felt tears in the back of his throat. Even his friend True was afraid of him, just as Ferris was. Just as his own master was, the person who knew him the best. What do they see that I cannot? The sudden panic shocked him. It had sprung up so abruptly. He hadn't meant to say what he had said. He hadn't even known he had been feeling it. Now it felt like the truest thing he had ever said. The dread was always there. He lived with it, but he didn't understand it. He just wanted it to go away. The depth of Obi-Wan's shock and compassion showed in his eyes, in the way he gently placed his hands on Anakin's shoulders.
My Padawan, I would do anything for you. I would bear your burdens for you if I could, but I cannot.
Anakin bowed his head. The panic and fear whirled inside him, and he was ashamed.
Obi-Wan bent closer to speak softly. He did not release his grip on Anakin's shoulders. But I will help you. I will always help you. I will not leave you. The words reverberated like a bell. Obi-Wan's touch brought Anakin back to himself. He raised his heads. The things between us have not run smooth lately, Obi-Wan said. But you never must doubt my commitment to you.
And mine to you, Anakin said. The breeze rose and stirred their robes. It smelled fresh and clean. It was morning, and they had things to accomplish, a journey to make. They turned, and together they walked to the ship. Anakin looked ahead to the next mission, and fear returned. Obi-Wan was bringing him straight to the creator of the process that had caused him so much doubt and panic. His fear suddenly freshened and sharpened. Now it was a certainty that this next mission would bring him too close to a truth he didn't want to face.
And that's right there, the best part of the book, the last few pages.
Great. Yeah, listen, we sounded very negative. I had a fine time reading this book. Jude is always welcome in my household. But I do think, it feels like a setup book, and it just feels like it's too large a setup book. Everything okay?
Yeah. Mel is doing everything she can to be a noisemaker here. So I'm sure you'll hear it on the podcast. Now she's flashing a flashlight in my face.
Yeah, I see that. That's crazy. It's fine. No problem.
All I do for you.
She hear us. She thinks we're dissing Jude, but that must be what's going on here. So
I'm not dissing Jude at all.
Diss Jude in my
I know we're not dissing.
I was just saying she's always welcome in my house.
him too.
Continue,
Okay.
Tim. Before I interrupted you. So
No, it's fine. Listen, I just think this book is clearly a setup book, and it's one where I just think a lot of what happens could have been accomplished in the first half of a book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not usually this kind of critical of these sorts of issues, but this is clearly setting up kind of the last run of books here. We only got 3 more after this, and it's not like Jedi Apprentice where there were 18 books. Like this This is a shorter series. I'm just a little nervous. I want the climax leading into Attack of the Clones to be meaningful and impactful. So, but you know, taking her time to set up this conflict is maybe a good thing in that regard.
Right. And with the every other book being like a storybook, you know, we have a storybook and a standalone book. So the next book, if we continue the pattern, the next book should be a Grana Omega episode. And I'm thinking maybe that Genazan Arbor and Grana Omega are somehow in cahoots.
But here's my problem with that idea. It could be executed well. Genazan Arbor, I like that arc a lot, but she is not the arch nemesis of Jedi Apprentice the way Granta Omega has been for Jedi Quest. Right. And I just feel like if you're gonna try to, there isn't really an arch nemesis. I guess he's tied very directly into the true arch nemesis of most of Jedi, or at least half of Jedi Apprentice, which is Xanatos. But I wish. I guess that's interesting. Hopefully she's kind of a red herring where she's maybe the villain of this next book, but she's kind of dispatched with. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, he'll kill her or something, you know, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, but yeah, you know, I don't want to be too harsh here. Maybe we came off really harsh, but I just, but I liked it, and I liked it fine. But I can't go higher than like a 5 on this one. It's just maybe 6. You know, it's in that range though, 5.5, somewhere in there.
I was thinking a 6, just because I don't want to give it a 5. That's so low, you know. So I'm going to give it a 6.
It's my least favorite of the Jedi Quest series. So
I agree.
Far. I would say that, which I think this series has been very consistent and consistently interesting. The big criticism I had earlier about supporting characters is true through a lot of it, and most of the better supporting characters are returns from Jedi Apprentice, which is fine. This is just Jedi Apprentice numbers 19 through 28 or whatever. So it's fine, but Anyway, Do you have any other big final thoughts?
Nope. I'm going to give it a 6. I'm going to flavor it true, the one true friend.
He is the one true. Listen, you can't. I'm glad to see True again. I sent you a picture of the back cover of one of the hardcovers that we'll be reviewing coming up, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but I'm very excited for those because those seem to be really tying things up. This whole thing seems to be coming to a head in those books, which take place during the Clone Wars. So,
yes.
Or at least the main story does.
And also with those books too, I want to point out you have hardcovers. I have a paperback version of both books bound into one. So I actually didn't get to see that on the cover. It's not on my cover.
So I figured you might like that. Listen, this is an incredibly short episode. I feel bad. I feel like we did give them a very big full-length episode last week that I thought was fantastic. So, I think that's one of our best episodes in quite a while, actually. I don't know if you felt that. So, if we let you down this week, I hope we can bring you back up next week when we talk about the changing of the guard, book 8 of Jedi Quest, and then the week after that, I got it in the mail.
Oh, you did? You did?
Zorba the Hutt's Revenge, Jedi Prince number 3, and our Senate draft. All of that's going to happen.
Yes, our Galactic Senate draft. Now, we should lay some, I guess we'll have to figure out the rules.
Because it's going to be 3 people, so, we'll figure it out. Maybe a snake draft. I'm not sure. Yeah. We'll figure it all out, and that'll be a big part of the episode.
Ooh, something I've been wanting to tell you, we're not forming teams, we're forming committees.
Yes, that's a good idea. Committees, I agree. Subcommittees, even.
What if we have a committee and then a subcommittee,
and we have to appoint a committee chair? We have to figure out and figure out what issue they're going to be discussing. Yes, we'll get into all of this. I hope our listeners are excited. This is going to be the most exciting episode of Padawan Library ever. We're going to talk about Galactic Senate politics for probably the first hour of the show.
I agree. It's going to be long.
And then we're going to talk about a Jedi Prince book, which those even though the books are hard to read, they're very fun to talk about. So that's going to be a great episode. But next week we're doing Changing of the Guard, Jedi Quest, and and
number 8.
We'll announce we'll talk over the next week, and we'll figure out like a full schedule for the next few months. I think and that we can announce next week.
So we'll do. We're doing next week. Will be Jedi Quest, and then after that we'll do Jedi Prince,
and then finish up Jedi Quest. For sure. So you got the next month basically wrapped up. We're still figuring out the timing of the hardcovers and Boba Fett, and there's a bunch of other stuff, but. And I want to maybe try to squeeze some Galaxies of Fear in here before October, too. So we'll figure all that out. But anyway, this has been a fun, very laid-back episode. It's just over an hour long, I think, which is... I don't know if that's our shortest episode, but it's close to it. So a nice little treat for you guys here on a Friday morning. But anyway... listen, email us at padawanlibrary@gmail.com.
Yep.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Twitter, I guess, at Padawan Library. We don't do a lot on Twitter.
No, we don't.
Yeah. Listen, nor should we. Who cares? Twitter sucks. And Facebook's bad, too. It's all bad. All of it's bad. But, our platform of choice really is Instagram. Definitely check out the Instagram. But you seem very excited.
It's because Mel's trying to run a dustbuster right now while I'm trying to record. So I'm almost done. Done.
I would like to apologize to Mel for taking up an hour or 2 hours of her week every week. But hey, about another year of this, Mel, and we'll be out of here.
Yeah, we'll be done. We'll be done. He said another year and we'll be done.
Hurry it up already.
This is one of the shortest episodes ever.
Yeah, this is our shortest episode. So, all right, people.
Yeah,
until
the book.
Yeah, check us out. Follow us, subscribe, rate and review. 5 stars only. Until the books are due back. Oh, I said rate and review. Subscribe.
Okay.
Until the books are due
whatever,
back.
Man. All of it. You got to do all of it. The library's closed, guys. Let's get out of here. Jesus. Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by the Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Copyright 2020, Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.